Assalamu alaikum everybody, welcome to the fourth video of the ICT IGCSE website authoring. In this lesson we're going to start by creating a couple of the HTML lists that we can have, and we will try to get into the world of CSS a little bit, how to use CSS to style your HTML document. Okay, so the first two types of lists that we have in HTML are ordered list and unordered list. Okay, ordered list and unordered list. This is an ordered list because it has numbers, okay, and this is an unordered list because it only has bullet points. Okay, now how can we create an ordered list? Simply the tag is OL, ordered list, OL. Okay, if you want to create an ordered list, your tag is OL. Okay, so we open OL and we start adding list items by using the tag LI, which is short for list item. And then you go ahead and add your first item, and then you close the LI, add the second item, and then you close the LI, and then at the end of your list you close the ordered list tag. Okay, so is the unordered list. The unordered list's main tag is UL, which is also short for UL. Also I mean the first two letters in the phrase unordered list, the initials. But we use the same LI, list item, to add items inside the tag. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that. Okay, now as always I'm going to create a new folder, and this time I'm going to call it CSS because we're going to add CSS later. Now I'm going to open the notepad. Okay, I'm going to go ahead quickly type the main tags of the HTML document. And here we are, doc type HTML, head, title. I have a space here. It might look a little bit neat, but whatever. Close the head, open the body. As you know, everything that we do has to be in between the body tags. Okay, so let's go ahead and add an ordered lists, OL. And let's add our first item, list item. Let's count the things that you take to school every day. Bag. Oh, why did I close the LI over there? I'm supposed to close the LI over here, right? Now let's add another item, list item. How about your pencil pouch? Stationaries. Okay, let's close the LI. Now let's add our last item. How about your water bottle? And let's close the LI, and there it is. No, forgetting something. You have to close the ordered list. Now let's go ahead, save our web page in our desktop. Inside the desktop, CSS. Now remember, we're going to call this CSS for later purposes, but I'm going to have to end the web page name with HTML or HTM. Both are correct. So I'm going to open CSS and run my web page, and there you go. That is an ordered list. Okay, all right. Now this time let's try an unordered list. Okay, and unordered list starts with UL. Okay, again we're going to use the same LI tag to add items. This time let's use the same items, backpack, bag, whatever. Okay, now here is a thing that we can do: copy, paste. You can delete the empty spaces, you can let them, it's up to you, and then we will change the items inside instead of repeatedly writing li. Now this time it's stationaries, and the last item is water bottle. Okay, there's been something that's bothering me. I didn't write the B capital over there. Okay, so file, save, going back to my web page and refresh. It didn't work. I just have a text. Okay, why it didn't work? Can you guess? Because instead of opening a UL over here, I closed the UL over there and /UL, save, and F5. And there you go. Those are your first two types of HTML lists that you can have in your ICT IGCSE subject. Okay, so the last list that we're going to learn today, there's actually other techniques that we can use in the lists, but let's not get into details because HTML and CSS are like a whole big world of codes that we can learn new things about almost every day. Okay, so this would be our last type of lists, description lists. Okay, the main tag is DL. Okay, DL, again, it's taking the initials of the phrase description list. Okay, now to add items inside the description list, your your tag is DT. Okay, if you want to add description to your list items inside the description list, you will use DD. Okay, now let's go ahead and try that. Going back to my notepad, I'm gonna start a new list, and the main tag is DT, description list. DL. Okay, now to add items, we're going to use DT. Let's say that, I don't know what kind of lists can we need. Let's say coffee, and don't forget to close the DT. Now I want to add description to this. Let's have 4 spaces. Now to use description, we use DD, description, right? Okay, so beans, sugar, and maybe, I don't know, cup. Let's close the DD. Okay, now let's start another DT. T. Guys, I'm just bringing examples as I go. I'm not prepared to get you examples of type of description lists that you can use, so you can just get creative and come up with your own items, right? DD for the T, it could also be like T itself, then sugar. 1 minute I'm writing in cap and the other I'm not, and again cup. Okay, let's close DD. Now let's add another TD. I think that's enough. We already have 2. Let's not forget to close the DT. Okay, let's hope that this works. Going back to my web page, and there you go. Now to have a space over here between your second list and third list, simply you can use BR, and this is a one tag that you don't need to close. Save and refresh. You want to add more space, copy this and paste it, and there you go. You want to have a line in between them, then use HR. Again, HR is a tag, is the second tag that we learned so far that you don't have to close. You should not close, actually. Yeah, so HR puts this amazing line that may help organize your web page. Okay, so in this moment we're going to start learning CSS. You guys don't know how much proud where we are right now. I'm so proud because, you know, CSS is like, it's a whole different language, it's a whole separate language. Okay, and in college, if you're studying IT or computer science, they teach you HTML, but they don't actually teach you CSS. They teach you a little bit of CSS when you are learning HTML, but they never actually tell you that this is a CSS code, and they don't get in depth in the CSS language unless students go out of college and then they seek a separate educational institute that teaches CSS separately. And trust me, CSS is like, it is so rich that there's nothing that you cannot do with CSS. So what is CSS? CSS stands for cascading style sheet. Okay, CSS describes how HTML elements are to be displayed on screen, paper, or in other media, whatever it is, a laptop or whatever browser, right? CSS saves a lot of work. It can control the layout of multiple web pages all at once. Well, this means that, for example, if you want to apply certain format for your header inside your web page, and you have like 1,000 web page inside your website, right? So instead of every time typing H1 color red, you just write it once on a CSS file, or write it in between the head tag once, and that's where we sometimes have to write CSS. Okay, external style sheets are stored in a CSS files. That means that we can actually have a separate file with a CSS code with the extension of .css separately, and we just have to call it whenever we create a web page. Now let's get into the syntax. Syntax is like the grammar of a language. You know, every language, every computing or computer language has a syntax, a different syntax. Now the CSS syntax is this way. As you can see over here, we have a selector and then we have a declaration. You can have as many declaration as you want. This one, you can write this one actually in between the head tag inside your page, inside the HTML tag, or in its separate CSS file. Anyways, this example or this syntax, it's actually declaring that every H1 has to have a color of blue. Okay, so this is a declaration, and a declaration consists of property and value. Now he here or she has defined two declarations for the same HTML element. Yeah, now not just the color has to be blue, the font size has to be 12 pixels. Now I want you to focus on, first we are supposed to use the flower bracket or the curly bracket, whatever you call it, and then color colon the value semicolon. Now here we have a space. I need you to do that. Whenever you have more than one declaration, you always have to have a semicolon and a space, and then start another declaration. Inside the declaration there must not be any space. It says here font dash size. See, we don't actually have a space, we have a dash. Okay, size colon, now the value of the property 12 pixels semicolon, and then you close the curly bracket. That's how we write CSS code. Okay, here is an example. Well, everybody around the world, they are having new lines whenever they write CSS. So I wrote this just to clarify, because when we are writing HTML, we only write in one line. Whatever we want to apply for a certain thing, we write it on one line. So this works and this works. Now let's get to the first example. Here, remember, this is an HTML element and it's P. This is the tag of paragraph. Now in CSS, you're telling the computer that every paragraph, okay, has to be what? The color has to be red, semicolon, and then the text dash align has to be center, semicolon, then you close the the curly bracket. Okay, or you can write this exactly in one line: P space curly bracket color colon red semicolon space text dash align colon center semicolon, and then you close the flower bracket. Both have the same outcome or the same result. Okay, so let's go ahead and try the CSS code. Okay, so on the same web page, I'm going to erase all the lists that we had. Okay, and I'm going to have a header, let's say H1. This, well, whatever happens between the tags is going to be shown exactly as it is on the web page. So let's not have spaces as much as we want. This is my header in CSS lesson. Now let's close the H1. Okay, now I have an H1 over here. I want to specify that every H1 inside this web page must be, let's say, in red. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to come to the header over here. Okay, either before or after the title, it doesn't matter. I'm going to open style. I want you to mark this minute over here because this is the first time we're actually writing in between the heads tag, right? Okay, except for the fact that when we added a title to our web page. Okay, so style, I'm gonna have a space over here just to make it a little bit more clear. Okay, which element tag do we want to have style to? H, right? Space, flower bracket. Let's think of a style. Color, colon, red. Okay, then we can add a semicolon and then close the flower bracket. And then don't forget to close the style. Okay, this would be our first CSS file. Well, it's still an HTML document, but we literally have a CSS code within the HTML. Now let's not get hasty. Let's run this code and see what happened to our web page. Is it effective or not? And no, it's not effective. Let's try to rectify my code. Okay, so let's specify H1 because that is the element that I have. Okay, so how to add CSS code to your HTML document or your website in general? We have 3 ways to add CSS code or insert CSS into our HTML document or website in general. So we have external CSS, internal CSS, and then inline CSS. Inline, probably for a programmer, is like if you're a lazy person, you would use the inline CSS code. But if you think about it, the external one and the internal one they're going to save you a lot of time if you're designing a whole website for whatever, a company or a business or whatever. Those are the easiest. I mean, you have to include all the style that you need in an external file or add the header or the head tag on every tag, but inline, that means you have to specify for every HTML element. Okay, we will explain the easiest. Internal CSS. An internal style sheet may be used if one single HTML page has a unique style. Okay, so if you have one page that has a different style, then you use it inline, okay, or an HTML element. Okay, the internal style is defined inside the style element, inside the head section. Okay, yes, they do mean the head tag that we open, third tag on every web page, on the main page. Okay, so here's an example. Okay, you open a doc type HTML head, and then you type style. Now you're trying to identify a style for the body. Okay, now you specified the body, the background color for the entire page, of course, because you're specifying for the body is linen, and then you close it. Okay, another HTML element that you want to style, you mentioned the HTML element H1, open curly brackets, then color maroon, margin dash left 40 pixels, then you close it, and then you close the style, you close the head, and then you start designing your web page regularly as we used to. You open the body and then you add your HTML elements here. Now this is an internal CSS. Why? Because we're doing it inside our HTML document internally. Okay, now let's go to inline CSS, another way to insert your CSS code. An inline style may be used to apply a unique style for a single element. Okay, to use inline styles, add the style attribute to the relevant element. The style attribute can contain any CSS property. For example, okay, this is an example, HTML body. Okay, inside the body, we're trying to create a header here, H1 style. Now, style from this word or code, this is the CSS code. Style equals speech mark or double quote, color colon blue. The color of this HTML element is going to be blue, and the text align is in center, and then you type your text, and then you close your H1. Again here, for this paragraph, the style is going to be red, and then you type the paragraph. Again, as I mentioned earlier in previous lessons, Style is a CSS code. Okay, that's why we don't write equal, we write colon, because this is the syntax for CSS code. Okay, now this is how you insert CSS code in line with your HTML document. Like literally, this is HTML and this is CSS, both in the same line. Okay, now the last type is external CSS, and this, like, to do that, you're gonna have to create a separate file .css, and then you create a link for it over here, in between the head tag. Okay, now the link has to be as follows: link space rel equals style sheet, and then hyperlink reference equals mystyle.css. This is actually the file that you have created separately or externally, and over here you're just calling it. Why? Because you want to have this page take the style from the external CSS file. So in our page, what kind of way that we applied to insert the CSS file? This is internal, right? This is an internal way. Why? Because I have it in the same HTML document. This is an HTML document, okay? And I didn't write it inline here, for example, or I didn't have it externally. Okay, so this is an internal way of writing the CSS code over there. Okay, so I have my file here, my HTML document. Now inside the HTML document I have a paragraph and a header. I've cleared everything up. I have a header and a paragraph. Okay, now let's write this from the beginning. So I want to attach a file, a CSS file. First I'm gonna open a notepad to create a CSS file. First, for my H1, I want the text to be, I press tab to have a space here. I want the color of the text to be red, colon, close the floral bracket. Now open another one. First I'm going to choose the HTML element P. I want the P, the paragraph, to be, okay, let's choose text align, colon, center, semicolon, and then close the floral bracket. Let me take another look at my code. Okay, I think it's fine. So let's save this as an external CSS file. Save as in the same folder. I'm gonna name it mystyle.ms.css. Okay. Now let's go to our HTML file. Let's call the file that's called ms file, which is right there. Okay, we're gonna link. Okay, so open, link. Oh, what did I do? Open bracket, link, space. Now let's write rel equals, open quote, style sheet, close. Now href, the same code that we had for links, hyperlink reference, href equals, open double quote. Now let's write the file name over here, ms.css, ms.css. Now when I do this, I'm not going to close any tags here. This is it. Now when I do this, I expect that my h1 to be open with notepad, my h1 to be red, and my paragraph to be aligned center. Now bismillah, let's save all the notepads that we have, Ctrl+S and Ctrl+S, and let's go and open our files. There's a major mistake somewhere that we need to fix. Okay, so let's revise our code. Link space rel equals style sheet, and then href equals ms.css, and then we have the body, we have h1 and p, and then let's go back to our code here. Okay, Okay, I can see that I didn't close the double quote over here. A single mistake like this could ruin your entire work. And there it is. It has worked. Guys, CSS is such a complicated language. I mean, I think it's more complicated than HTML, because sometimes in HTML you make a mistake and you still get your result, but in CSS that's not going to happen, because you have a file somewhere else that's linked to the file that you're working on. So that was a success. We have created an external CSS file. This is it. And then we applied it to, or we linked it to our existing HTML document, so that we apply the style for everything that we do over here. So if I created another heading and then I close it, okay, this one, save. What am I doing? This one is supposed to appear over here in red as well, right? So whenever I open an HTML element that's defined in my CSS, is going to have the same style. This is a whatever paragraph. It's going to have the same style that's written on my CSS file. So I created another one and it's centered in the middle. Okay, so let's practice more and more of CSS codes, and I'll try to find more styling codes in the next video. If there is a next video, I think we should practice more with tables, with CSS, because those are the two things that we really need to work on to increase our skills in HTML and website authoring in general. And that is how we can have an external file as a CSS that we can link to our HTML document. There might be a question in the ICT IGCSE exam that tells you to create a CSS file separately and save it and provide an evidence for that. So you may not even need to write a single HTML tag, but the question that actually comes from the web authoring unit or the web authoring chapter could all be about how to write a CSS file externally and then link it on an existing HTML document that's already provided with the exam, right? So I believe this we've come to our end of this fourth video. I hope it was inclusive, clear, and we've learned a lot today in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.